The Somali Democratic Republic is located in the Horn of Africa, the easternmost part of the African continent. It is one of the world's desperately poor countries and, beginning in the late 20th century, was beset by civil war and anarchy. As warring factions contended for power, most of the economy collapsed. Area 246,201 square miles, 637,657 square kilometers. Population 2020 est. 14,065,000. Extending from below the equator in the south to the Gulf of Aden in the north, Somalia is bordered by the Indian Ocean on the east, Djibouti on the northwest, Ethiopia on the west, and Kenya on the southwest. The capital of Somalia is Mogadishu, which is also the largest city and commercial center. Land and climate: the landscape consists largely of flat plains and plateaus, cut by several deep valleys. The Guban, a narrow semi-arid plain, runs parallel to the Gulf of Aden along Somalia's northern coast. It is low-lying and sandy, with some scrubby vegetation. To the south rise the steep cliffs of a rugged mountain range. Its highest peak, Surid reaches Somalia's greatest elevation, about 7,900 feet (2,400 meters). Farther south lie the plateaus of the Galgadon, or Ogo, highlands and of the cooler and drier Hod region. The extreme south consists mainly of plains. Along the Indian Ocean coast is a stretch of sand dunes. Somalia's only permanent rivers, the Juba and Shabelle, flow through the southwestern part of the country, from Ethiopia to the Indian Ocean. The area between these rivers is agriculturally the richest part of the country. Somalia has a tropical climate that ranges from semi-arid to arid. In summer, the northeastern coast has average temperatures of 95 degrees Fahrenheit to 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 35 degrees Celsius to 38 degrees Celsius, while in the south the mean annual temperature is about 82 degrees Fahrenheit, 28 degrees Celsius. Somalia has 2 rainy seasons and 2 dry seasons each year. Rainfall is usually greater in the south and west. Droughts are frequent. The main rivers often flood during the rainy seasons. Plants and animals: the natural vegetation consists mainly of scattered small trees, low bushes, and patches of dry savanna grasses. Forests grow in parts of the highlands and mountains. Poor land management has damaged much of Somalia's natural vegetation, upon which both livestock and wildlife depend for food. The country is still home to many kinds of wild animals, including lions, leopards, hyenas, foxes, and warthogs. Hunting and loss of habitat, however, have drastically reduced the populations of elephants, giraffes, zebras, hippopotamuses, and rhinoceroses. People and culture: about half of the population leads a nomadic life raising livestock. The nomads travel to Kenya and Ethiopia to graze their herds. The settled farmers and herders live largely in the south and northwest, near the rivers and in areas where the rainfall is sufficient to support agriculture. Permanent settlements are small and widely scattered. Only about a third of the country's people live in urban areas. More than 90% of the population is ethnically Somali, a Cushitic people that also live in the bordering areas of Kenya, Ethiopia, and Djibouti. Somali society is organized around large family groups called clans. Sizable groups of Bantu live in the south along the rivers, whose waters irrigate their economically important crops. Many of the Bantu are the descendants of slaves, and the Somali tend to regard them as socially inferior. Somalia is also home to more than 100,000 Arabs, mainly of Yemenite descent. Islam is the official religion, and almost all the people are Sunnite Muslims. Somali and Arabic are the official languages. English and Italian, the languages of Somalia's former colonial powers, also are spoken. Illiteracy has been a problem. In the early 21st century only about 25% of the men in Somalia could read and write, and less than 15% of the women could. Health services are meager, especially in rural areas. Tuberculosis, malaria, and gastrointestinal disorders are common. The infant mortality rate is high, and life expectancy is only about 50 years. Economy: Somalia has been heavily dependent on foreign aid. Its economic development has been crippled by many years of civil war and anarchy, as well as by its lack of great natural resources. Moreover, periodic droughts have hindered agricultural production. Somalia's economy is based largely on livestock raising and farming, which together contributed more than half of the gross domestic product (GDP) in the early 21st century. About two-thirds of the country's land consists of pastures. Herders raise large numbers of goats, sheep, camels, and cattle, which are the country's principal exports. A mostly dry country, Somalia has little land suitable for growing crops. Bananas, the chief export crop, are grown along the Juba and Shabeelle rivers. Sugarcane, sorghum, corn, maize, sesame seeds, and beans also are grown, and frankincense and myrrh are produced. The country also has a small fishing industry. In the late 1980s, the small manufacturing sector was dominated by small-scale meat and fish processing plants, textile and shoe factories, and leather tanneries. There was also a petroleum refinery. However, the manufacturing industries were largely destroyed during the civil wars. The country lacks great mineral wealth but mines small amounts of gypsum, salt, and the clay mineral sepiolite, also called meerschaum. The small service sector has begun to expand. History: Somalia's location along the coasts and near both Ethiopia and Arabia long attracted traders. Its land was probably part of the region known to ancient Egyptians and Greeks as Punt. Between the 7th and 10th centuries Muslim Arabs and Persians established trading posts along the Gulf of Aden. By the 10th century Somali nomads were probably living in the north of what is now Somalia, and another Cushitic people, the Oromo, were living to their south and west. Bantu tribes lived in the south between the Juba and Shabeelle rivers. The Somalis later migrated southward. Intensive European exploration began in the 19th century. During the colonial era, the land inhabited by the Somalis was divided into 5 separate sections. 2 of these, British and Italian Somaliland, eventually became the country of Somalia. The others became part of Djibouti, Ethiopia, and Kenya. In 1884 the British set up a protectorate in the north. A group of Somali Muslims led by Sheikh Maxim Kabdal Zaysan, in Arabic, Muhammad ibn Abd Allah Hassan, fought a bloody religious rebellion against the British for several years. Meanwhile, Italians had begun taking control of the south in 1889. During World War II Italy invaded British Somaliland in 1940, but the British recaptured it and much of Italian Somaliland the following year. After the war, in 1950, Italian Somaliland became a United Nations Trust territory administered by Italy. On July 1, 1960, the British and Italian territories were united to form the independent country of Somalia. A dominant political issue in the new republic was Pan-Somalism, a movement to integrate into Somalia the areas inhabited by ethnic Somalis in what are now Djibouti, Ethiopia, and Kenya. In October 1969 President Abdirashid Ali Sharmark was assassinated. Later that month a military coup brought Maj. General Maxim Siad Barre Mohammed Siad Barre to power as dictator. Siad Barre sought to create a socialist state and gained some support from the Soviet Union as a result. In 1977 the government of Somalia backed ethnic Somali guerrilla fighters in the much disputed region of Ogaden, in Ethiopia. The guerrillas captured most of the region for Somalia. The following year, however, Ethiopia secured the backing of the Soviet Union and Cuba and forced Somalia to retreat. Large numbers of Somali refugees fled to Somalia. 2 Somali clans began conducting guerrilla operations against Ethiopia in the early 1980s. In 1988 Somalia and Ethiopia signed a peace agreement in which both countries pledged to stop supporting guerrilla groups. This agreement helped set off civil war in Somalia. Clan-based guerrilla groups overthrew the Somalian government in 1991, and Siad Barre was forced to flee the country. Civil war broke out between rival clan groups, and a state of anarchy ensued. Soon after Siad Barre's departure, a clan group proclaimed a separate Republic of Somaliland in former British territory in the northern part of the country. Another breakaway state, the Northeastern Autonomous Region of Puntland, was proclaimed in 1998. Neither received international recognition, though Somaliland remained more stable than Somalia. Meanwhile, there was no central government to rule the rest of the country, which became a battleground for the forces of the 2 main rival warlords, General Maximd Farix Kadid, Mohammed Farah Aidid, and Kali Mahdi Maximd Ali Mahdi Muhammad. Clan warfare interfered with grain production, resulting in widespread hunger. In late 1992, the United Nations launched a security and relief operation, which included some 28,000 United States troops and additional troops from 10 other nations. The troops relieved mass starvation but were unable to stop factional fighting. The country was still in turmoil when the international forces departed in March 1995. In 2000, a peace conference organized by several international groups established a transitional national government. The body did not bring unity to the country, however, and had little real power. Many of the warring factions signed a peace treaty in January 2004, and later that year another new transitional government was formed. The self-proclaimed Republic of Somaliland did not participate. In 2006, an insurgent group known as the Islamic Courts Union (ICU) seized control of Mogadishu and many parts of southern Somalia. The ICU was forced out of Mogadishu by Somali and Ethiopian troops but continued to launch guerrilla attacks. The African Union dispatched a small peacekeeping mission to Somalia in 2007. The country's ongoing turmoil contributed to an increase in piracy in the waters off the Somali coast. Natural as well as man-made disasters plagued the country. Somalia suffered from several floods and droughts. Flooding in October and November 1997 killed at least 2,000 people, left 200,000 homeless, and submerged more than 150,000 acres (60,000 hectares) of farmland. In late 2004, a tsunami caused by a great earthquake in the Indian Ocean near Sumatra, Indonesia, struck the Puntland. At least 150 Somalians were killed, and thousands were left homeless.